Vince, a lot of good stuff tonight. Are you ready for rapid fire?
I'm always ready for rapid fire, baby. Let's do this.
Do it.
It's what people have been waiting for. They've been
Yeah.
waiting for our movie critique, and that's at the end of rapid fire.
I think you're right. Yeah. So we got to get through these other topics first. So fill in the blank. It's blank that when Jack Swarbrick was a recent guest on the College Football Inquirer podcast, he said he expects that Notre Dame will be compensated similarly to the Big Ten in the SEC when the Irish sign their next TV deal.
It's a great thought, but I don't see it happening. It feels like a pipe dream that they're going to get that kind of money from a network just for Notre Dame. Like, I just don't see that being the case. Now, I think they're going to make a ton more than they're making right now. No doubt about that. And they're still going to get a piece of the ACC puzzle. And so I'm sure that he's adding that in as well. But I just don't see them in the $100 million range. Isn't that what the Big Ten is giving to like every Big Ten school? They're just
both around $100 million. Yep.
I got a hard time seeing that happen. If it does, man, I already respect Jack Swarbrick for a lot of the things that he's done for Notre Dame, no doubt about it. But my respect level will go up even more if he's able to garner $100 million deal for TV rights.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a starting negotiating point. Like saying we expect to get what the Big Ten and the SEC are getting. Now, the key in this whole thing, as we've talked about before, is do you have a bidding partner? Like, is it just going to be NBC, or is there someone bidding against NBC? And we were also talking, I think it was last week, you were gone, like we were talking about, how negotiations work, because if you've got Notre Dame sitting in the middle saying 100 million, and you've got NBC on this side and some other partner on the other side,
right?
And each of those two, NBC and whoever's bidding against them, don't know what the other is bidding and don't know what the other is willing to go up to, then maybe you push close to that number. But you've got to have more than just NBC in there, I think, if you're going to come close to that. Because if it's just NBC, and, Jack has been very NBC friendly, I feel like, in the past with these deals because of the comfort level they have. And I'm not, again, I'm not saying that as a negative. They were comfortable with what they were getting. They knew what they were getting with NBC. They knew that Notre Dame knew that Notre Dame was going to have a say in some things like kickoff times and, just a lot of different logistics of the broadcast. So that's been good. But if your goal in this contract is to get close to $100 million, you can't just be saying, well, we like NBC, we're going to stay with NBC, because I don't think they're just going to throw out $100 million because they've been with you for 30 years. Everyone's in business.
No hometown discount. Like that's, and I realized, NBC took a chance on Notre Dame way back when, Dance with Who Brought You, blah, blah, blah. No, man. No, not with the way things are going, not with the landscape that is right now with TV deals and everything. You cannot give NBC the hometown discount. You just can't do it.
Right.
Number one, you're throwing money away. Mm-hmm. Number two, I don't think the product is all that great. Like, it'd be one thing if NBC was knocking it out of the park and it was just great and the announcers were awesome and all of that. Okay, let's talk about a little bit of a discount so we don't have to worry about, the competition and you guys losing us. That's not the case. Like, let's take this baby out for a spin and see what she can do for us. Like, that's how I feel about the Notre Dame football product. Let's see who's interested. Let's go up and down the strip a couple times.
I mean, now part of that as well is going to be, if you're going to talk about going to a Fox or a CBS or, ESPN, those are the three, the logical three potential is like, are you going to have to concede that you're going to have noon kickoffs, for example, for home games? Like how much are those kind of factors going to come into play, and how much is it going to mean ultimately? Are you willing to have some noon kickoffs if you get your $100 million or even $90 million or whatever it happens to be? How much you're going to have to concede potentially to get some of that if you do take it someplace else?
It's a good question. And I'll be honest with you, and this might piss some people off, I'm okay with a noon kick. I'm okay with it. Just saying.
It wouldn't be my favorite thing, but Hey,
I get it.
It's not like they've ever asked the media for their input before.
And they never will.
No.
They never will, and it would make our pregame show from 10 to noon very difficult.
Yeah, we would have to change our time. I would say that.
Other than that, I don't mind being done around dinner time.
Yeah. We might have to record that the night before and then
just play it right up to kickoff.
That's right. All right, so Michigan finished its spring game last week, and afterwards, Jim Harbaugh said that he has the best version of a Michigan football team that he's had in his 8 years at his alma mater. So, Vince, I ask you, which is more surprising, that Harbaugh said that or that Michigan has already played its spring game?
I guess it shows you how out of touch I am with what's going on up at Michigan. I had no idea that they already played their spring game. And they're 3 hours north of us.
Exactly.
Why?
And it's been cold until these last couple of days. It has been cold and wet and nasty.
It would just be yet another decision that Jim Harbaugh has made that makes no sense. So I'll say that. I would also say that what surprises me more is that the spring game was as early as it was. Because it doesn't surprise me that he's saying, oh, the team is so good. Whether that's true or not, of course he's going to say stupid crap like that. Because it's the spring game and you just played against yourself. And if I'm not mistaken, it was a tie. I think I saw that on social media, that it was a tie game at the end of the spring game. So what are you going to say? You know what I mean? So I guess that's coach speak. And so I would expect the coach speak. But
is it coach speak? Like, it seems like he's really, I get it. They've been to the playoff the last 2 years, but it really just seems like you're setting the bar up on yourself, and like you're setting a bar for you to, like you're setting a bar for you to trip over if you don't watch out.
That's typical Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, and that's, so I guess maybe that's not surprising. I don't know.
It just doesn't surprise me at all that he'd be flapping the gums about something stupid. Like, it just doesn't surprise me in any way. It just doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, I am surprised that they're have already played their spring game. I think, Notre Dame's is still a week and a half away. And like you said, Michigan is 3 hours north of here. And
this is the first nice week of weather. Like, now. Yeah. This is it. This is the first. I mean, it's going to be beautiful all week long. But it wasn't like this before at all.
No.
So my guess is they didn't get outside at all for practice. I mean, they were probably indoors the entire time.
Yeah, I know. Like, did they just play the spring game in the indoor or what? Like, six people got to show up? I don't know.
Yeah, I just don't understand that in any way, but whatever. It's Jim Harbaugh at his finest.
Fill in the blank. Tiger Woods limping in the rain at the Masters before withdrawing this weekend was blank.
So hard to watch. It was so hard to watch. And I actually watched a lot of the Masters. I pretty much watched it all day on Sunday, actually.
Did
I watched
you?
the completion of the third round, went to dinner, came back and watched, I want to say, the final group from about hole 2 all the way to the end. And I saw the clips of him limping around the putting green. It was just like, who is this old man and why did you let him into the Masters? Like, I felt it's like when you finally get to, meet your heroes and you're like, oh, really? I just, it's hard to watch. It's really, really hard to watch.
I mean, and the guy is 47 years old, and that's still kind of hard to wrap my brain around, the fact that Tiger Woods is 47 years old, but he's obviously showing his age. But I saw that, he said it was like plantar fasciitis, but someone, I can't remember, was it Ryan Day, like, said that it was actually like a screw poking through his foot, or because he's had all these surgeries and stuff like that. Ooh. And so it's just like the guy has been just his body is beaten up, from the accidents and, just all this different stuff. And it really was painful to watch that. It's like, one, it's pouring rain to begin with. And then here's Tiger limping through it and trying to go on. And then he finally has to withdraw. It's really amazing that it's only been 4 years since he won the Masters, and to think of where he has been in these last 4 years with all the stuff that's it's like age is a bitch, man. It happens to all of us.
Well, I mean, it happens to all of us, but we don't all like wrap our cars around a tree and like do
That's
all
true
the other
too.
stuff that he
That's
did.
true too.
I mean,
that's true.
I do feel like if he didn't have
but
some
your
of the
body
issues,
also doesn't recover the same after.
Dude, you're preaching to the choir here. I get it completely. But like he was always in such great shape, and he was like one of the first golfers to like be working out all the time and really doing good things with his body, you know what I mean? And being in really good shape. I feel like if he didn't have kind of all these off the course issues, he'd still be playing at a high level. You know what I mean? And to see him limp around like an 87-year-old man was just, it was hard to watch. Like when
tough.
You think of Tiger, you think of like the 97 Masters and you think of, you know, all of these different, like him chasing the ball into the hole, like pointing at it, you know what I mean? When it just being just high energy and all these different things. It's like, okay, I guess I'm ready. Yeah, man. Like, I guess I'm ready for Tiger's kid. Like I guess I'm ready to turn the page at this point. That kid can strike the ball. You know what I mean? Let's put him on the tour, and we'll put Tiger in the senior tour, and then we can go watch him up in Benton Harbor.
I think that's it. A University of Indianapolis player threw a no-hitter and hit for the cycle in the same game late last
Unbelievable.
week. Have you ever witnessed either of those two things in person?
I've seen a high school no-hitter, but those are not all that exciting because there's usually errors.
Most people don't even know it's a no-hitter.
Exactly. And you're usually playing a team that can barely put 9 breathable players out there.
Right.
So
right.
I have not witnessed a competitive no-hitter, nor a cycle, which, by the way, in my opinion, hitting for the cycle is way more difficult than throwing a no-hitter. I'll just say it. Because I think there's a little bit of luck in both. But like hitting a triple is really difficult. Like you got to kind of get some carom. Like it's not easy to do.
I just remembered, by the way, you did the Notre Dame baseball game at White Sox Field with me.
Yep.
Guaranteed rate, whatever that.
Yeah.
Do you remember the late inning controversy in that game?
No,
because
I don't.
Jeremy Barnes almost hit for the cycle in that game for Notre Dame. There was a play, a ball was well hit to left center field. And who are they playing? Like Northern Illinois.
They're playing Northern Illinois. I do remember that.
A ball was well hit to left center field, and the guy had to really run to get there, and the ball went off his glove, and then he ran into the wall and then bounced away. Barnes pulled in to third base with what looked like a triple, which would have given him the cycle. And the Notre Dame SID, I'll just say his name, Michael Birch, because we've gone back and forth on this for years. He's not the SID there anymore, but he called it an error instead of a triple, which would have given Jeremy Barnes the cycle. Would have been the first time I had ever witnessed someone hit for the cycle, and it would have been in a pro stadium or pro ballpark as well. But it didn't happen. I just remembered that you and I were together for that game.
Oh, we were absolutely together for that game. And let me show you something here, Sean. Let me show you something. Boom.
There it is.
You and me in the
Look
dugout.
At those two strapping young lads.
That was a long time ago, buddy. That was a long time ago, but that's us in the dugout prior to the game. I know. It's a long time ago, friend. It's a long time ago. I know.
That was like 15 years ago, I think.
It had to be close to that. I don't know. That was one of the first things I uploaded to Facebook when I got Facebook. And that was obviously a long time ago. So I don't even know what the actual date was. I uploaded it in 2008, and I know that it was before that. So
I think it was from the 2008 season, though.
Was it?
If I remember right.
Okay.
It was either 07 or 08. I'm pretty sure it was 08. But
okay. Well,
I'd have to go back and look. But
that's the best picture we have from that of you and me.
There you go. All right. Well, let's get to the movie. Air.
Oh, here we go.
We went and saw it over the weekend. It's the movie about Nike's pursuit of Michael Jordan after he was drafted by the Chicago Bulls in 1994. So first, rated on a scale of 1 to 10. How do you rate Air?
right now, one viewing, I'm going to give it an 8. It felt very similar to like a Moneyball. You know, it kind of had that feel to it to me. And I'm a huge Moneyball fan. Like I will watch that movie almost every time I see it.
That might have been the last movie we saw together before seeing this was Moneyball,
which is pretty funny, actually.
I know.
So I'm going to give it an 8, but I feel like if I go back and watch it again, it might go higher. Like that's how I feel right now. But I didn't want to overdo it. So I'm going to give it an 8. Where are you at?
I'm right in that range as well. I was thinking 8, 8.5. I thought it was really good. I thought like it was reminiscent a little bit in the opening of like Miracle with the little montage of, you know, they did a montage similar to Miracle. Now it wasn't about how depressing everything was, but it was just kind of like, here are some of the things going on in 1984, like all the real things that were going on with some of these news clip kind of, you know, montage and stuff like that. I thought the soundtrack was really good. I thought it just moved. Like there were never any points. Like I was sitting there and I finally got up to go to the restroom, but like, I'm like, what point am I going to pick? Because I don't want to miss anything. And so I was finally, I can't even remember exactly when it was, but I just jumped up, I raced out, I got back as quickly as I could. Cause like it kept moving from one thing to another. There were never any real, dead spots. I felt like.
Yeah, no, I agree. It moved along very quickly. I was never thinking to myself, man, when is this scene going to be over? Like I never had that thought in my head. And I have that thought a lot as I'm watching movies, you know what I mean? And there'll be scenes that I'll just fast forward to, like favorite movies that I'll fast forward through certain scenes, you know what I mean? And that was not the case here. Like there was no, like every scene moved the movie along. They all had purpose. They all had reason, you know? So I agree with you on that.
Did you have a favorite scene?
So I had trouble with this, to be honest with you. I ended up going with the scene between Sonny and Mrs. Jordan in the backyard at the picnic table, where he was predicting what Adidas and Converse were going to say, you know, in their meeting. Like I thought that was pretty funny, and their kind of back and forth was pretty good there. Viola Davis is obviously an amazing actress. So, I mean, I thought that scene was pretty good, but like a very close second for me. And this is actually what I wrote. I said, any scene that had Chris Tucker, because he was friggin' hilarious.
True.
He was hilarious.
He was really good.
Really good.
That's true. I mean, that was a good scene. The backyard scene where he's there. The kind of this basically the scene where they all get together in the conference room and Damon, you know, Sonny Vaccaro finally gives his speech. You know, it was like it like if you were comparing it to Moneyball, you know, like Moneyball, Brad Pitt had his little speech and all that kind of stuff, and like Sonny, like that was kind of the climax of the movie where he gives the spiel to the Jordans and they ultimately, you know, end up getting it. After that, to me, it was actually Ben Affleck as Phil Knight in the jogging outfit. Like
as he's running like down the street, and
he's got the tights and like even that jacket, it looked like very 80s, you know.
And they did a good job. And I know this is going to sound odd, but Phil Knight is a very top-heavy dude. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. He's just kind of boxy on the top.
That's true.
As Ben Affleck was running down the street from behind, he looked like Phil Knight. Like, they did a good job because everybody knows what Ben Affleck looks like.
Right.
They did I saw a side-by-side of what Phil Knight looked like at the time and what Ben Affleck looked. I mean, it's pretty good. They did a good
job with it. They did a good job.
Yeah. They really did.
I thought so. So did you go home and Google what happened versus what was fiction?
I didn't until I read the rundown, and then I did, because you're like, did you? So then I did, and then I Googled it. And from what I was able to find, it was pretty stinking close. Now, there's obviously some controversy amongst the players in all of this as to like who was kind of the quote unquote MVP of the deal.
Yeah, apparently, Nike executives have tried to discredit Sonny
Yes.
Vaccaro over the years
because they fired him in
terms of-
'91. Like,
right. In terms of what his actual involvement was and all that kind of stuff, which
right.
I don't know. Like, obviously if you're taking one person's account of the whole, and apparently when The Last Dance was being made, the Bulls 30 for 30 documentary, whatever you call it, a few years back, they sat down and interviewed him for 3.5 hours. And for whatever reason, none of his stuff made it into The Last Dance. What was that, like 10 hours of The Last Dance or something like that? None of his stuff made it in there. But the guy who made this movie, the guy who wrote the screenplay, went and got that 3.5 hour transcript of his interview, and that's what he based, I guess, a lot of the screenplay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I saw, Phil Knight obviously kind of discredits him. They give a lot of credit to that coach that had a very small role.
Oh, George Raveling. Yeah.
Yeah. They give him a lot of credit for it. Even Jordan gives him a lot of credit for it. I saw a quote by Sonny Vaccaro. It was like, Phil's a liar. Jordan's a liar. They're all lying, the whole thing. And then somebody else kind of came in who had done some research on it and said, really, the truth is closer to what Sonny is saying. But obviously it's not all true, but like it's closer to what he was saying. Like he was a very big part of it. It sounds like the Jason Bateman role had a bigger kind of a role in the whole thing. At least that's what Nike wants to push, that he was kind of the,
and now, I'll say driver. I didn't, come home and Google any of it, but of course, as the weekend went on, you did start seeing the counterpoint articles that were coming out, here's what really happened. And that, it's like, I never like getting too involved in that.
I know.
Like, it's a movie. We've talked before. It's a movie. It's made for entertainment purposes.
Exactly.
Just
it's
like
not a court of law.
Right. Just like, Joe, and this is a point that a lot of people bring up with Moneyball, since we brought it up. Joe says Moneyball was such a ridiculous movie. Tried to convince us that Hatterberg walking is what made the A's a very good team. No mention of Giambi, Tejada, Chavez, Zito, Mulder, and Hudson. Well, one, they traded Giambi at some point during the season, and it was Jeremy. It wasn't Jason. But like the thing about the pitchers, like I hear Dan Patrick bring up the thing about Zito, Mulder, and Hudson all the time. I would tell you that any team that makes it to the playoffs, they're going to have good pitchers. They were trying to make a movie about the analytics revolution, trying to fit. Oh, by the way, we had Zito, Mulder, Hudson. Like, where does that make sense in that screenplay? In terms of how you're going to tell the story in less than 2 hours about, essentially the analytics movement and how it kind of got kickstarted. So it's like you can get too caught up in too many details when you're trying to tell a concise story.
And all three of those guys were homegrown guys, weren't they? I mean,
exactly. They
didn't
came
go
up
out
through the
and
system.
Get them,
right?
So
they didn't acquire them. Hatterberg was acquired, which was part of the
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. But again, everyone's going to have their own.
That's fine. It's still a good movie.
And like the scene that you were talking about, apparently Vaccaro did say like he never visited the Jordans. Like most of the conversations they had were on the phone. There were a lot of conversations between him and the mom.
Yeah.
But I guess most of them were on the phone, for example. But again, it's like details, schmeetails, It's like, It's a much better cinematic,
and that was a big part of the movie.
If he shows up,
that was a big part of the movie, was him going to, and how, odd that is, and how you just don't do that, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right. And the other thing that I found, so you led me down this rabbit hole today. The other thing that I found was that the agent for Michael Jordan was actually very pro Nike. He wasn't kind of this adversary that he was made out to be.
The antagonist. Okay.
And apparently he pushed a lot of his clients towards Nike during that time frame, which I thought was interesting.
Interesting.
So, yeah, there's that.
Interesting. So it's a little bit of a Dan Devine device there,
right?
How the agent was portrayed.
Yes,
huh?
I believe. Yeah, that's a really good point. It's a really good point.
All right. So the most negative thing that I've heard probably is from the people who are basically saying, well, this is Nike. It's a big corporation. The movie treats it like that they're this spunky underdog. So what do you think about that?
Well, they were a big corporation, kind of like they were in the run. They were a running shoe corporation.
Very, very sort of narrow
And
lane that they were in. Like
they
they were
acknowledged that though. Like
yeah,
that, when Sonny was in there arguing with Phil, he's like, "You made all this money and you're giving me $250,000 to go out and get a basketball guy. Like, come on, you got all this money. You come on, you got to give me something." And so they acknowledged that in the movie. They just weren't the basketball shoe brand in 1984. And I think that's accurate. I mean, they talked about the fact that they were thinking about shutting down the basketball division.
Right.
That's all accurate. Like that was all legitimate.
Yeah. And I agree with what Joe was saying here. They were the underdog at the time because he says, I think Converse was the official shoe of the NBA. And I remember, I didn't play basketball in high school, but I had a pair of Converse high tops at around that time.
Yes.
that was the shoe to have. Like Nike wasn't even really making high tops, I don't think.
Well, they didn't make up that commercial that they showed in the movie, right? That showed Magic and Bird,
right?
Talking about their Converse.
It was a real commercial.
That's a real commercial. They didn't make that up. Like they were all Converse people. It was Dr. J. That was the three. It was Dr. J, Magic, and Bird. Yeah. And they had them up on the wall and the whole thing. And Mrs. Jordan was like, he doesn't need to be fourth. He wants to be first. So why would we go to Converse?
I don't know if you remember, when they would show Phil Knight, he had those different pairs of shoes sitting in the background and stuff like that behind
all
him.
Running shoes.
And there was the blue running shoe with the gold swoosh. That was the first pair of name brand shoes that I owned. And that was early 80s. It was just a few years before that. That was it. That blue running shoe. And of course,
yep.
Because again, you didn't really that's where you basically saw Nike was in that vein. Maybe a little bit, with the tennis, the court shoes and stuff like that, and the running shoes. But I do literally think that this deal, not only did it make Michael Jordan a multi-billionaire, I think it essentially ended up launching Nike. I don't think you can underestimate what it meant. So again, now, what, almost 40 years later, it's easy to say, well, they're just the corporate giant and all that kind of stuff. But then,
not then.
Like Joe said, they were a little bit of the underdog, definitely in the basketball space anyway.
Right. Anyway. They were a niche company. They were running shoes. And the reason that they were running shoes is Phil Knight was a track and field athlete at Oregon. And so that's what he knew. And that is how he started his company. I mean, that's funny.
You're not Marshall. We had Voights growing up. Being poor was awesome.
Dude, I got all my shoes at Payless. Okay. So you're preaching to the choir on this one.
Like I said, I didn't, it took until middle school before I finally got a pair of name brand shoes, and it was always an ongoing argument to try to get another pair of name brand shoes.
Yes, so it was.
Why are you getting these when you can pay half as much at Kmart or Payless?
I remember walking with my dad into Payless every time I had to get a new pair of shoes. I was like, come on, you're killing me here, Dad. Come on, don't you know? But here we are. Yeah. Somehow I made it to adulthood wearing Payless shoes. So
I just thought that it was really fun to see Affleck and Damon together.
Yeah.
And to me, this is where Affleck is his best because he directed it. When he directs and he is a little bit more understated as an actor, as opposed to, really trying to, I feel like that's when he's at his best. And I thought Damon was really good. I thought Viola Davis was really good in it. And as you said, Chris Tucker was awesome.
He kind of stole the show at times. You know what I mean? With his humor and it was really, really good. It was unexpected humor. I will say that. I didn't go into this movie thinking I was going to laugh, and I laughed out loud on a couple of different occasions.
Well, does Chris Tucker do much anymore? I really,
After,
been a while
unless he's
since
paired up with Jackie
you
Chan,
understand the words that are coming out of my mouth. Like that's the last I remember of him, and that's been a while. As you said, I think that was with Jackie Chan. So.
Yeah. I mean, he resembles his younger self, but he's put on some weight. Like he just looks like an older version, but he was good. He was really good in this movie. It was well acted across the board, and they got some names in this, like you said. And I thought that they all did a really good job. I thought that Ben Affleck actually did a really good job portraying Phil Knight. I mean, from a physical standpoint and from a, I'm the CEO and I answer to the board, and he was kind of afraid to make some decisions. And then all of a sudden he's like, you know what, we're going to do this. It was well done throughout. I was impressed.
Yep. I was too. And I guess Amazon, it's like Amazon Studios was involved in it. So it probably won't be long until it shows up, streaming here, and we'll get some opportunities to watch it again. So.
Yeah. Which I'm looking forward to. I really enjoyed it. And in the original, I was going to take my son to go see it. So I'll just plop his butt down on the couch and make him watch it.
Good idea.
So,
all right, we will finish with that tonight. Go see Air. I do recommend it. It's good. It's good entertainment, especially for April. Like, you don't usually see a lot of good stuff come out in April.
Good point.
So
it's usually Memorial Day is kind of what everybody has circled, right? So, and then summer and etc. But yeah, it was good. Really good.
That's going to do it for tonight. Smash the like button on your way out. And of course, subscribe, rate, and review. And we will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.